Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson with the Sound of Tomorrow show on WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester, which is also, coincidentally, what you're listening to. Today's show, we're going to be talking about Anne Frank, like we do sometimes. Heather's got some, I don't know what this means, so we'll just see what this is. Heather's got some sweet stuff she wants to talk about. We might get to some tips on how to talk to vaccine doubters, so that kind of thing. That's up next. Sound of Tomorrow, WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. But first,
this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. My life is ruined. Ruined.
Oh, Heather, hello. I was not expecting to see you
Ross,
here.
Can you believe what she's doing to us? Oh, how could she? I'm shook. Just shook.
Well, I am too, seeing you here and absolutely no one else. Certainly not the lively group of gentlemen I was anticipating. When I got the calendar reminder for Hotties in Space, I actually thought it was about that circuit party I set up for April. Sometimes there's circus parties too, but I thought it was about that circuit party that I set up for April 2020 and had to reschedule until COVID was gone or people just didn't care enough about it anymore to take any precautions whatsoever. Which explains why I'm wearing my finest feathered fascinator and sequined loin cloth, but does not explain why you're dressed like the one lady astronaut character in a sci-fi comic written by a 15-year-old boy or a 30-year-old man or a 55-year-old man or, well, a boy or man of any age. I can see like a lot of the undersides of your breasts. I can see that. And the tops of them as well. And the sides and the middle parts. I don't know. How is this happening?
It's tape. Lots of tape. Don't worry about it. What you should be worried about is that we're not on Hotties in Space. We're on You Can't Touch This. And the stupid cone has just told us we're not allowed to do any hugging and kissing at all. None. No hugging and kissing.
Yeah, no. So as far as I can see, you and I are the only people here, so that was not going to happen anyway.
I know Leanna told us her rules, but I so fancy Ross. He's so fit. I just get lost in those Chalcedony eyes. How I long for him to wrap his hairy arms around me. I'm sorry, Leanna. I take what I want, and I think I'm going to break some rules tonight.
Okay, it's like you just turned to, it looks like kind of like a dried up old Renewsit air freshener with that somebody glued LED lights onto. Is that what you were just talking to?
No, Ross, that's Leanna, and she just ruined everything for us.
Okay, wait. So you just turned to what I am now certain is a dried up old Renewsit air freshener with LED lights glued to it and talked like a sort of like a British person with just your normal accent, whatever that is. No one's really sure. This is definitely not the circuit party I was looking forward to, but wait.
Oh, should we do it, Ross? Should we break some rules?
A new season of Too Hot to Handle just dropped, didn't it?
No, Ross, I told you. We're on You Can't Touch This.
Yeah.
But you could touch this. Just a little, you could.
Now I get it. A new season, that reality show you like, Too Hot to Handle, where the super hot
fit. They all say fit now, even the Americans.
Oh, weird. Okay, but that show where the super fit 20-somethings have to develop meaningful relationships instead of just hugging and kissing all over the place, and the light up cone thing named Lana finds them every time they hug and or kiss. That dropped, and you're doing that thing where you're pretending you're on the show.
You never let me have any fun.
You're not having fun? I'm the one who thought my big dance party event was tonight, and now I'm stuck here with you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No. I'm sorry.
I mean, we could still break some rules.
Thanks, but no. I'm okay. A little cold, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I can imagine. How much tape is that?
OMGP. So much tape.
On the side parts, too?
It's all under.
What are those called?
I-
Do the side parts have a name?
They probably do.
I don't know female
I don't think
anatomy.
I mean, the one phrase I know for it, we're not allowed to say on WoW.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite
I'm Abby
co-host.
Zykowski, the babe with the power, and welcome back to the Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO LP Rochester. Ross, I got myself pretty good with that dried up old Renewsic cone with the LED lights glued on it.
I would love it if we could get you a hobby or some friends. So if there's anyone in the audience, you're listening to, of course, the Sound of Tomorrow show in WAYO
Ross,
104.3 FM Rochester. If you'd like to be Heather's
this
friend.
is my hobby that I do with my friends.
Okay. Well, it's a hobby. So I guess that's something. I guess you need more than like an hour a week.
Yeah, I probably
with
do.
Someone who enjoys talking to you more.
You stop.
No,
You stop. You're so
I
mean
love
to
it.
me.
I love talking to
And
Heather.
I love talking to Ross.
Heather.
Yeah, tell me.
What's
Tell me
going
about
on?
the things.
I don't know. How the hell should I know what's going on? Heather, you know what? You want to jump right into it?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So, actually, no, you know what? I'm going to jump right into it, but I'm going to throw it back to, you threw me the ball. I'm going to throw it right back to you because you had last week, we were promised some discussion about a young lady who you may all know has Anne Frank.
Yeah, and on this program,
there's no way to, I don't know how you set up an Anne Frank. So, I'm just gonna throw that. I'm gonna toss that to you.
We have definitely spoken of Anne Frank before on this program, and I'm sure that we will again, because there's still a lot of stuff that isn't really known about her situation. And the thing that I ran into was from NPR, I believe, was where I found this article. And there's a cold case team that believes it solved the mystery of who may have betrayed Anne Frank. Because I guess it's definitely not definitively known who it was who let anyone know that Anne Frank and her family were hiding in the annex.
And I've heard that this was a thing. I actually made a point of, I just want to tell you how much maybe this is too much pressure. I don't know, but I made a point of not really looking into this too much because I knew you were going to bring it up. So I don't know if that's a compliment to you that I trust you to give us the straight dope on this, or if that's too much pressure. But either way,
I know it's an awful lot of pressure, but luckily I do have this article here. So there's a new book called The Betrayal of Anne Frank, a Cold Case Investigation by Canadian academic and author Rosemary Sullivan. And in that book is where it's posited that the person who betrayed Anne Frank and her family was a prominent Jewish notary called Arnold Vanderberg, who disclosed the secret hiding place of the Frank family to German occupiers in order to save his own family from deportation and murder in the Nazi concentration camps.
Okay.
And there's a filmmaker, Thies Byans, I'm going to try to pronounce it there, who had the idea to put together the cold case team that was led by a retired FBI agent, Vincent Pankoki, that's it, to forensically examine the evidence. So there's not 100% certainty about this. And my understanding is there's been a lot of speculation as to who it was who could have turned over the Franks and why. But the long and short of it is that it's really just kind of sad. And in the book, there's apparently an exploration of things like, how did the fascism bring people to the desperate point of betraying each other, which is an awful, really awful situation. And it concludes with, we went looking for a perpetrator and we found a victim. So it's not really great feel good news, but it is kind of interesting to like think about, because of course if you have like an awareness of Anne Frank and her story, maybe you read her book, it was awfully popular when I was a school kid, we all read it, there was this automatic feeling of like, anger and hatred toward whomever the betrayer was.
Yeah.
And I feel like that knee jerk reaction is fair, but then if you start looking at it as though someone was put in this position to save their own family, it just makes it a little more multidimensional, you know?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's really interesting because I'm gonna obviously, as I just explained, being completely ignorant about this new thing. I'm gonna say, just from past experience, I think there's probably at least a 50% chance that this is, you know, um maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but if you dig it's again, I know nothing about this, I know nothing about these people, but with so many of these things, you look at there are these big headlines, and then you dig down deep into it, and you're like, oh, okay, they've made a guess that might be right, based on things that may or may not be, criteria that's sort of worth digging into. So I don't know that that's the case here, but I feel like that is a very common thing. And I've seen a lot of things, especially when we were talking about like the Jack the Ripper cold case stuff and things like that, where people have talked about, they'll get forensic scientists and blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, 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 blah. And then you sort of dig into what they're looking at, and you know, it's more than a century old evidence. It's things that were misreported at the time. It's unreliable witnesses. So it's sort of a question of picking and choosing, there's real evidence, but you're picking and choosing what you want to believe and how much credibility to give those pieces of evidence in order to sort of make the case you want. Again, I don't know that that's the case
Yep.
here. Um,
This it
but
does. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
no, well, I was going to say, so my point with all that is to say, who knows, but it's, and maybe they do. Again, maybe I'd have to read the book. It sounds like an interesting perspective in the sense of, even if this isn't, even if this evidence doesn't hold up, or it's not as conclusive as maybe the headlines have made it sound, it sounds like there's still a very interesting perspective in, a situation where people were people were potentially in a position of turning on each other to save themselves. And what does anyone do in that
Mm.
situation? Who knows? I guess you don't know till you're in that situation. If my family were threatened, um, and if my family were threatened at the cost of me selling out, someone else, I, you know, I'd love to say I wouldn't, or I'd find another way. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And
And is that even the wrong thing to do, to choose your own family over, maybe strangers? I
I,
don't know. Is that even morally wrong, or is it just,
yeah.
the best of horrible choices?
Yeah, it's just so much more nuanced than it seems when I just, like I said, have that knee jerk reaction. And this is the conclusion that it might have been the person they think it is, was based upon a brief note, a typed copy of an anonymous tip delivered to Otto Frank after the war that names Vanderberg, who died in 1950, as the person who informed German authorities in Amsterdam where to find the Frank family, is what the researchers say they used. However, the Anne Frank Museum also made all of their materials and everything available to these researchers. And museum
Mhm.
director Ronald Leopold says, no, I don't think we can say the mystery has been solved now. I think it's an interesting theory that the team came up with. I think that they come up with a lot of interesting information, but I also think there's still many missing pieces of the puzzle. And those pieces need to be further investigated in order to see how we can value the new theory. So, like you
I
say, it's certainly not cut and dried. It could well be a lot like the Jack the Ripper stuff where everything's just so old. What methodology were they using to go about determining this possible conclusion?
Yeah. Yeah, it's and stuff like this is interesting, but I think, part of the problem is, well, you get a couple things. Sometimes you get over ambitious, with a lot of the Jack the Ripper stuff, which is, I'm comparing this to, and it's probably not a fair comparison, but there are a lot of like I don't know if over ambitious is the right word, over eager amateur sleuths, or over eager, the retired cop
The retired
who's doing the
FBI
stuff,
agent.
but they're the retired FBI. I mean,
That's
yeah,
what we've got on
they're
this
literally,
one. Like for real.
right. Um, and it's sort of, and the kind of people that bring a certain level of credibility, but don't necessarily, having a certain skill set and a level of credibility doesn't mean that you can analyze century old data any better than,
Mm-hmm.
if what you're getting is not reliable, then you're only going to be able to do so much with it. It's interesting though. So I think this stuff is always interesting as long as you go into it with the mindset of this is a
Yeah.
hypothesis. And you have to really dig into it to evaluate. The second layer is, so you get people who, you get researchers who really want this to be the thing. Again, not necessarily the case here, but then you definitely get, every time you get like news media who's like, it's solved,
Yes.
it's like with Amelia Earhart, we've
Oh,
talked about too, like solved.
so many Amelia
Yeah.
Earharts.
And it's always solved. And it's like it's like the Examiner and the Inquirer and those papers that are at the newspaper checkout where like every issue is like, Joe Biden has 3 weeks to live. Barack Obama's going to jail tomorrow. We have solved, the Queen of England has been arrested, and they're like, and they're consistently, there's always something. And maybe the thing actually happens. They'll be like, so-and-so's about to die. And then that person dies. And they're like, see, we were right. We've had 80 million stories that were incorrect, but this one was right. So sometimes a hypothesis is right, but it's not necessarily like, you can't show your work about how you got there. But the other thing with this is, I think like you said, it's a really interesting perspective on it. It's also the kind of thing I don't know how much I care about. Like, it's interesting, but I don't know if the Anne Frank story turns for me at all on who turned the Franks in. The story is, to me, about the Franks and Anne Frank and what she lived. I mean, presumably she never knew who turned her in. It just, it could have been, from her perspective, it could have been anybody. It could have been the janitor. It could have been somebody walking by in the street. It could have been, it made no difference to her life, just the fact that someone did. So it's interesting, and it can shine lights in interesting places, like you said, but ultimately for me, it's sort of not all that interesting a part of the story.
I'm going to keep my eye out for news headlines on it just to see like what more develops. But it sounds like you also have more Anne Frank news.
Yeah, this is terrible. Not that, it's hard. I guess at this point, it's hard to find a good Anne Frank story, but I don't mean to be. I'm not trying. I have, we've talked about this before. I've been to the Anne Frank house, and it was the most moving experience of my entire life. And I'm so, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is somebody who you might think by that name would be an interesting, thoughtful person. I don't know. You think of the child of Robert F. Kennedy might be someone that you should listen to, and he's actually someone you should never ever listen to for any reason.
Interesting.
So for a long time now, and I've sort of known this about him, but he's he sort of moves in and out of the press, but he's been a kind of a conspiracy theory guy, and he's definitely been a anti-vaccine guy, like well before COVID. So so he's he's definitely having a moment right now. So I don't want to quote what he said, but this is all over the news. So I just don't want to quote it because I don't like it. But so he was at over the weekend on Sunday, this past Sunday, he was at a like an anti-vaccine, specifically anti-vaccine mandate event in Washington, D.C. There was a big gathering with lots of speakers. And among this type of thing, we've definitely seen plenty of, an interesting combination of things that are sort of made to seem separate, but actually they're kind of just the same thing, of like, oh my God, this is just like the Holocaust, and overtly anti-Semitic, like, you see the sort of stuff that's like, the Jews are making us get the shots, and those are almost made to seem like different things, but they're really just the same thing. I mean, they're really just exactly the same sort of anti-Semitic thing. So, Robert F. Kennedy, and again, I don't want to quote this, but he basically gave a speech about how well, basically saying pretty much exactly that. It was along the lines of, well, Anne Frank could hide in the attic at least, but you can't hide from blah blah blah. And he sort of went on about that, and like people could get away from not you could escape from Nazi Germany, but you can't escape from these vaccine mandates. Again, it's worse than that, but I don't want to go
Yeah.
into it. So I I don't have anything to say about that specifically, other than when people say the quiet part out loud, it's always I don't know. I don't know if it's revelatory, because I mean, we know there's plenty of anti-Semitism and all sorts of things in the anti-vax movement. But when you get a particularly prominent name going up on stage, and we've seen the terrible oppression that people feel, based on the idea that someone's suggesting they might get a
Hmm.
vaccine. So when you see an extremely rich white person from the most powerful family in America comparing himself to Anne Frank, you think, is it really?
Yeah.
Is that really a good
Uh huh.
comparison? I don't know. So what, but where this led me was, I thought this was interesting. So, I was sort of this got me curious about, uh, vaccination in like Anne Frank times. So, and one of the things, I mean, so I'll start off with this sort of most the most horrific angle of this, but then there's some other interesting stuff in there as well. So one of the historical facts that makes that statement even more offensive than you would you already
Uh huh.
can, you think, like, could this get more offensive? Well, it turns out yes,
Oh.
if you with a little background in history. So Jews in, Nazi ghettos and Nazi concentration camps were, systematically denied vaccines as it
I knew
happened.
that was coming. I
Um,
did not want to.
yeah,
But I didn't know until you started. And I was like, oh, I know what he's going to say. Yeah.
yeah. Um, which I, I for reasons that I don't know that need to be stated, but obviously this was, vaccinating people, that you're trying to kill is, this was not something the Nazis considered a priority,
Right.
interestingly enough. And apparently, so there was one ghetto area, um, Theresienstadt, which was the one place where people where it was a Jewish ghetto. The Jews were given vaccines, but only because it was the place where, like, they'd bring, like, the Red Cross to show, like, oh, look how well we treat. Yes, we've got these concentration camps, but, like, so this was like the show
Sure.
area. So people there would get vaccines. That was pretty much it, though. Everybody else, they were denied. So, again, to
Uh,
to take that statement. But so I found some more information on this, just because this led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I did a little more research on this, and not, I mean, from the internet. I didn't go to books, like,
come
it's
on.
not. I didn't go to the library,
Let's not
so
get
it's not.
wild about this.
I didn't pull out the Encyclopedia Britannica, for God's sake. But this was from the the Jewish Museum of Berlin and their website, and I just thought some of this was interesting. So, to quote them, Judaism has always been very receptive to vaccination against infectious diseases because Jewish law requires protecting life for oneself and others. More than a century ago, the U.S. doctor and anthropologist Maurice Fishberg, who was Jewish, remarked in, Zeitschrift für Demographie, und Statistik der Juden. Oh, there's a translation there. I could have just done the translation as I'm quoting this. The Journal of Jewish Demography and Statistics says, in fact, every physician who possesses experience with Jews knows well that they are always amenable to employing any new method to prevent or treat disease. There are virtually no vaccine opponents among them. I mean, this is generalizing, but this is a historical quote. Nor any other kind of superstition that could induce them to resist the health authorities' vaccination efforts. Furthermore, the Jewish clergy is always in favor of leaving medical matters up to physicians. At this time in most of Western Europe, smallpox vaccinations were obligatory. The Jewish Museum Berlin has a lot of vaccination cards in their not inventory. What do you call a museum? Inventory. In their
There
collection.
we go. Collection. I had archives
Um,
for you, and I knew that wasn't quite it. I was like, ah.
Thank you. And they have vaccine certificates going back to 1844 is the earliest one they have. Um, so, and the other angle here, that is again that puts a little bit of an extra little spin on this. So these vaccinations, not only were they, not only were they incredibly common in that time period. They were expected everywhere. It was also the case that they were incredibly valuable to Jewish people in particular. And speaking specifically of the vaccination certificates, because you needed them to emigrate.
Ah.
So if you were trying to escape, if you were trying to emigrate somewhere, that vaccination card was an incredibly valuable piece of paper
Mhm.
because that was a thing you needed to get to the country that you were trying to go to. It was all just very interesting. I was just sort of this talk about vaccinations, and it just got me curious about the time period.
Mhm.
And again, a lot of it in the context of it makes it even makes trying to compare anti-vaccination rhetoric with all that's bad
Mhm.
enough. But the more you dig into the history, the worse it gets. Because for the most part, again, this is generalizing, but this was a population that was overwhelmingly vaccinated, was overwhelmingly perfectly happy to be
Mhm.
vaccinated, um, wanted to be vaccinated, was not allowed to be vaccinated in some cases by the government that was trying to kill them,
Uh-huh.
and this and that of course applies not to just Jews, but overwhelmingly to Jews in the Nazi era, but also anyone else that the Nazis were rounding up. So it's I don't know what the point of all that is, except that it's bad. Stop it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're going to do it, because I guess I'd rather know where someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stands than not, but also don't do it. I mean, it's not. Also, it's a ridiculous
Yeah,
comparison.
it is.
It's a ridiculous comparison on its face. You are, you're not, um, CNN was interviewing people at this thing, and it was like, well, at my job, they sort of want us to get vaccinated, and I didn't. And it's not, someone sort of looked at me funny,
I
and you're just like, okay, is it really? Is it really like the Holocaust for you? Is that really,
yeah.
that's where you're going to go? All right.
Yeah. You
I
heard
don't
about Carhartt, right?
know. No,
Oh.
I, no, I saw that Carhartt was in the news, but I didn't see why.
Oh, it's another one of our favorite things. Along the lines of what was it? Nike was endorsing Colin Kaepernick, so people
Okay. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
don't like black people were cutting the Nike logos out of their clothes.
Sure.
Carhartt,
Ruining,
yeah, they're ruining items that they'd
buying,
bought. Um,
buying things just to destroy
yes.
them. Yeah.
So Carhartt has a vaccine mandate for their employees. So anti-vaxxers are setting their own very expensive Carhartt goods on fire, and they no longer have warm and sturdy coats to wear.
It's so stupid.
It's
It's so stupid to destroy something you bought. And I've even run into that where I have things from companies that, I sort of don't like anymore. And it makes me not want to like wear it so much, but I'm also fully aware that like destroying this thing that I already paid for really, it's no skin off anyone's
it's
nose.
really
It
not.
is absolutely like, it does not bother them in the least.
No, no, this is not hurting Carhartt. This is
No.
not affecting Carhartt. If anything, once again, this is giving publicity to Carhartt.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's just, it's so strange.
I, the wild, the, I just don't understand. I really, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand the psychology of it. I mean, you can point to, people can point to the psychology of people and why people are so over the top wild, but I will not understand the degree. There was just the story of, and I'm sort of loath to bring this up because it upsets me particularly, but there was a woman who there was a woman at a school board meeting
Yeah.
in, I'm drawing a blank on where it was, but that's all right. Who literally threatened to show up at she was at the school board meeting, I think over the weekend or on a Friday or whatever, and she literally was like, if this, if you continue with this vaccine or this mask mandate, I'm going to show up at school on Monday with all of my guns and I'm going to unload all my guns in your school.
Yeah, that is
And you just and if that's one person, I mean, that there are that there are people who are going to say things like that in the world.
yes.
There are people who mean them. That there are people who, and as a side issue, I'm not saying they're necessarily the same thing, but there are people with, there are people with all sorts of mental imbalances that, are, you expect this. You expect that this exists. You don't expect to see so much of it all the time and have people quote unquote normal people sort of cheering it on. I mean, that's the shocking part. Like, it's not that they're, it's like I always said with Donald Trump. Like, it doesn't surprise me that there's a Donald Trump.
Right.
It surprises me that there are so many Donald Trumps and so many people cheering on a Donald Trump.
So yeah, that gun rhetoric has always been kind of chilling to me. Like I throughout
Yeah.
my life have heard people say things like they wish they'd brought their guns so they could shoot someone who jaywalked. Just here in Rochester on a city street.
Yeah.
Like literally that was the sentiment. And to me, just having that level of violence in one's thoughts
Right.
is frightening. Like I find it literally chilling that
It's
somebody's brain sees like like I've also heard that rhetoric applied to a child who was being a little loud and said a naughty word. Like I don't it scares me that some people, instead of having what I would consider a more appropriate reaction, like, oh, that kid said a naughty word. Well, that wasn't very nice, was it? To
oh
me, that's like what I might think in my head. I would not
yeah.
immediately go to that child should be physically harmed. I don't know. Maybe I'm too
Yeah.
soft.
It's the volume and the specificity. And I think we've all said like, oh, I'm gonna kill her or whatever. I mean, there's I've tried to remove words and even thoughts like that from because even that I'm sort of even that kind of thing, what in my, it's the kind of thing I don't like to say just because I feel like it steers your brain in a direction that we don't need to be
Same
going.
for me.
But it's the kind of thing that people say like, oh, I'm gonna kill so and so or whatever. Yeah, but when it gets louder and so specific, like I'm going to pick up a gun and do this to a person, you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a turn of phrase. That's not an expression. That's you went even further. This was in Luray, Virginia, by the way, at the Page County Public Schools. I just had to look that up. So this particular
that instance.
instance.
Yeah, the instances I'm referring to are definitely right here in Rochester, New York, and there were things that I heard said to me firsthand.
Yeah.
Really?
But it's a even that, I mean, it's a whole other level to go before a school board
I
and say
know.
you're going to shoot up a school on a Monday. And the follow up to this, by the way, is a whole other issue about the things white people can get away with. So this woman has since been
Okay,
arrested.
good.
Well, she was arrested. She was arrested and she's now out on bail. But she's been charged with making the threat. The initial response was, so the school put out a statement, the school district, or the Board of Education. I'm not sure which body, but we'll say the Board of Education put out a statement saying basically, we have pulled together resources. We're increasing security at our events. We're increasing security at our school. We're working to get extra police protection for the school because of this threat.
Yeah.
Right. So at about the same time, the chief of police in Luray, Virginia, or I believe the sheriff, perhaps, again, I wasn't. I've been reading about this, but I wasn't 100% prepared to talk about it. So please feel free to, like they say, do your own research. But I'm getting the key points, in here. Put out a statement that said, well, you know what, she apologized, and that's what's really important. So we don't expect that we'll be charging the person. Now, I don't know if it was because of the outcry or whatever that continued. So she has been charged.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see where that goes. Who knows? But I mean, the idea that you would like go, you can't. That's not something you get to apologize for. I
I
don't
don't
think.
think
Really, I
so.
mean, really, like if I if I went before a school board and threatened to shoot up a school, I would expect someone to, I would not expect to make it back to my
Well,
car
I mean, that's the
without being
thing
arrested.
that she she threatened to enact a school shooting. Like I
Yeah.
don't think you can say that.
Apparently you can. I mean, I guess is maybe one of the points here. Apparently you can, because this, she, nothing still may come of this. I mean, she's been charged. But that doesn't, she's not been convicted of anything. But, the initial response from the police, as the school was saying, look, we are increasing security. We're spending taxpayer money based on this threat to increase our security because of this threat, because we need to be prepared for this threat of this woman who says she's going to come shoot up our school. The local police authorities were going, I feel like it's fine.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, she said she was sorry.
I mean, don't you think, like, I know we've said a lot of times, like, the government isn't going to come and take away your guns. Specifically for this woman after making that threat, isn't that when the government should come and take away her guns?
Right. And I don't know what her, I don't know what her real situation was, but she was very specific about, like, oh, I've got all these guns and I'm going to bring all these guns. I mean, that was sort of the phrasing. That was sort of the way it was put. So yeah, once you, I know we're all for freedom, but once you threaten to use all your guns to kill a bunch of kids because you don't want them. I mean, I don't want to dig too much in the logic of this because there's no point, but also you're going to, someone's making the kids wear masks. So you're going to come kill the kids. That's not even, if there was any,
there's no logic.
Like, if there was any rationality there, it's definitely not in that. So you just threatened to kill a whole bunch of kids in public.
Yeah.
You threatened the people you were talking to. I mean, it was a, sort of a direct threat to the people there and then to the school. So again, and maybe I underestimate my own white privilege. I'm sure I do, right? I'm absolutely sure I underestimate my own white privilege. But if I made a threat like that, I would not expect to make it to I would think like, oh, there are going to be police waiting for me in the parking lot.
And there should be, obviously.
There should be.
Yeah.
There should be, absolutely. I don't know. I don't know how we justify things like this. And there's so much of it. I mean, we're seeing this kind of thing at school boards across the country. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it.
No, it's really.
I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know how to make it stop.
That's the thing.
I don't know how to. I don't know. And you think about engaging with people to try to bring maybe to bring people back to some sort of more rational place. And part of me is like, well, these are terrible people. I don't know what I just don't know what the point of that is. And then another part of me thinks like it's the Oprah thing, right? Would you rather be happy or right? Like, do I want a better society where people aren't running around threatening to shoot up schools because they don't like, a pandemic policy? Or do I want to be like mad at the people who are, I guess if you told me like, well, if you go up and smile and compliment these people, then they'll stop doing that. I guess on some level I'd have to say like, if you told me 100% for sure that was going to do it and they were going to stop behaving this way, that would be a lot to give up.
Yeah.
But I guess on some level I'd have to say like, okay, well, if it saves lives and makes people stop behaving this way, then I guess I'll have to do it. Um, if there were a thing like that, of course, that's an imaginary scenario.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, even if there was, I don't know what. Even if there was such a thing, I don't know what it is.
No. And the two solutions that I've tried, one of going with the person and discussing what a great idea it probably would be to gun down that person who jaywalked, for example, and just making it real over the top stuff I'm not even going to say because I don't want that pull quote out here.
Right.
That doesn't really work to show them how absurd they're being.
No.
And also just trying to be rational and saying, like, no, honestly, I mean, they just jaywalked and there weren't even any cars in the street. That wasn't really a problem. And I don't think we need a gun to shoot them. Why would you say that? That also doesn't work. There might be other solutions that I'm too thick to think of, but those are the two that have occurred to me. Neither of them have worked.
It feels like I feel like and I'm sure I say a million stupid things a day, no question. And I'm not even aware of it, but I feel like I am very aware of, what I try to be, at least I try to be very aware of what I'm saying and how it's perceived.
I know I try.
Yeah, I know I try. And I feel like it's people who cannot even hear themselves. Or they're saying something that you might say in your head, but now they're saying it out loud, and it's the kind of thing you should have kept in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like anyone has a handle on this. I don't feel like there's any psychologist or any organization that has a handle on this other than to say, like, people are bad and they've always been bad, and it's just coming out.
I mean, maybe that's it.
But that's, this is all.
It's.
I don't know. This isn't where I planned for this episode to go, but.
Well, my next item does somewhat, unfortunately, tie in with this, but also it's a little bit funnier.
All right.
Have you heard about M&Ms?
Have I heard about M&Ms? Yes, they're delicious.
Have you heard about the beloved cultural icons, apparently? The animated M&M personas, the humanoid M&Ms, if you will.
I have. Are you asking about this specific thing or the multiple decades?
Yeah.
Or are you asking me if I've heard about for multiple decades that there have been anthropomorphic M&Ms?
Yeah, so there are these anthropomorphic M&Ms. I honestly never knew they were quite as much of a linchpin in American society as apparently they are. But what the M&M Mars Corporation has done is a rebranding of these characters. I was most familiar with them because I knew that here in the US, the green M&M is very sexy.
Sure.
And I'll admit, when I became aware of that, I was like,
I'll admit, I have had some naughty thoughts about the green M&M.
I'll admit, I had kind of it's interesting. I don't understand why we have a sexy candy, but whatever. America.
Right.
I'll be honest, it really didn't weigh heavily upon my mind. And so M&M Mars has done a rebranding of their characters, and it's pretty wild. And I think a lot of the stuff I've seen about it is actually just in good fun, like people being very, very silly. I found an article from NBC that, to me, it sounded like the writer misunderstood some of the stuff that people were tweeting about this and thought that people were actually up in arms, where I was like, that's pretty funny. Because they've gone, and Green M&M no longer wears her go-go boots. She wears sensible sneakers, and she is spreading shine and not shade. The two lady M&Ms don't have their kind of catty relationship anymore. They're there to support each other as a sisterhood. The orange M&M is apparently riddled with anxiety. So it's just kind of funny. And some of the tweets are like, I am a single issue voter and my issue, keep the green M&M a hot, sexy lady. The article seemed to portray this as though the person was not joking. To me, that's clearly a joke.
Right. I mean, there was a whole Fox News thing about
I will
this.
get to that. I'll get to that.
Okay.
One
Sorry.
moment, please.
My apologies.
So what I was seeing was like, this was silly. This was all in good fun. The article was trying to make it sound like people were way more upset than they actually were. But then I was just so curious. I wanted to keep looking around. So I found, I can't remember what site this is from, but it's an article by Parker Molloy. And it definitely contained a lot more information about, the history of these anthropomorphic M&Ms, how they'd been used in marketing and stuff. And it also led me to understand that there was a full tweet. I'm trying to find this here from Tucker Carlson on Fox News that, where's my exact quote?
Do you I think I might have the quote you want, because I was just pulling it up.
Yes.
Do you want me to
Would you mind
see
reading
if this
it?
is the one?
Because I think
Okay.
my printer ran out during that very part that I wanted.
Okay, so this is a Tucker Carlson quote. If it's not the one you want. M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any of them.
Thank you.
That's the goal.
Thank you. You are my absolute hero for finding that quote. Yeah. So as much as I was like, this is very silly that M&M's is all on this like inclusivity and diversity and like fostering harmony and inclusiveness. It's M&M's, whatever. Tucker Carlson is actually upset. Also, he's apparently entertained the thought of having a drink with these anthropomorphic M&Ms, which this is another one. I'm like, why do people care? Like, I can see the people who wanted to make jokes about this. Like, sure, because it's silly and funny. But to actually, like, do you think he's serious? I think he's serious. Am I just buying it?
I don't know. I don't know to what extent. I mean, some of these people.
Or is he just trying to rile people up?
Yeah, the Tucker Carlsons, I don't know. And I've given up caring, the extent to which this is. I am really angry and worked up about this versus like, I'm going to go on a rant about this because people will pay attention to me. I don't know. And I don't even care. It's, I think there's a bigger question here. Did you know that there were anthropomorphic M&M characters? Because you're making it sound like you sort of didn't.
I mean,
I just need to know about this. I need an answer to this.
So I didn't really know that they had such established personalities that they would need a rebranding. Like, apparently Red was quite bossy.
Okay.
And Red is now going to be less bossy and more of a team player. So I knew they existed, and I knew the green one was sexy. And that is what I knew about the anthropomorphic M&Ms. And I mean, I must have seen ads or something, right?
All right. Yeah, I didn't really know what their personalities were either.
No, and I didn't know that Orange and I, we should be best friends. I did go to the M&M site, and I'm a little bit disappointed about this because they had a quiz you could take for like, which M&M are you? But it required you to put in an email address, and they would email you letting you know. And I was like, that's fine. We all know I'm Orange.
Right.
But yeah, this article here that I found does suggest that Fox News is absolutely not truly all up in arms over the M&M's rebranding, and is using
I don't think they're sincere about anything.
Yeah, is using this to, again, get people all riled up and get people upset about the new woke M&Ms. And I kind of feel bad if anybody is actually riled up about this, which I think they are. There's a cartoon featured in this article by a website from a person called Ben Garrison. I don't know who that is. I don't think I want to looking at this cartoon. And it's like it's horrible. It's got like the woke M&Ms, and woke is all in rainbow colors, and they're chasing a white M&M, and like they've got bats, and they're like destroy the patriarchy, melt bigot, and it's like a very very weird angry cartoon that makes me think there are actually people who are upset that that cartoon freaking M&Ms have been ascribed with personalities, and I don't.
As a matter of corporate branding, like to sell M&Ms. Yeah, I have a confession to make.
Yes,
Actually,
tell me.
I am a little mad because I feel like why can't she still be sexy? You know,
I know. I
why can't she have her go-go boots?
I kind of
I'll take her
yeah.
go-go boots if she doesn't want them
Well,
because they are pretty great
so there
boots.
is actually a very good suggestion here in the footnotes, and this makes perfect sense to me. The shift away from go-go boots and stilettos to sneakers and block heels almost certainly has more to do with the fact that go-go boots and stilettos simply aren't as fashionable as they once were. These changes are
Yeah,
less a war on sexiness, which, yes, is silly as we're talking about candy, and more a war on the things that don't sell anymore.
yeah,
Which I get because sneakers are in, blocky heels are in. Stilettos aren't right now, nor are go-go boots, though for me, go-go boots are always, always in style.
absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting. I don't know what people are actually mad about, and this is sort of the problem, right? Like, and we're sort of contributing to it, I guess, in our own way. Is like, a company does something like this sort of to get attention, and then somebody gets mad about it, somebody pretends to be mad about it, somebody's happy about it, somebody's pretending to be happy about it, and everybody's like, I mean, this is a microcosm of every conversation in our sort of culture. Is like, nobody even knows who's
I
sincere and who's
know.
not sincere. And are you like, somebody made a joke, and are you mad at the joke because were they being serious, or were they telling a joke? Is the person on TV really mad about it? Should I be mad
I
about this? Is this
know.
something I should be very concerned about? And like, it's all so stupid. I mean, what's not stupid is, of course, the Mars, the Mars, Nestle, and Hershey company are in the middle of, lawsuits over child slavery for their chocolates. That's something we should be concerned
And that
about.
is absolutely
However,
brought up in this article as well. Yeah, the article is really good
okay,
because it lays out a lot of points like you and I would do. Like, okay, listen, M&M Mars did not do this because they care about inclusiveness. They don't care about anxiety. They're not worried about how women are viewed in society. They want to sell some chocolate to people
right,
who have money. Are they
and that's their
problematic
job.
because they have anthropomorphic cartoon M&Ms? No. Are there other reasons we need to look at the company? Yes.
Yeah,
You want to hear why Green had go-go boots to begin with?
because she's a naughty little
This
M&M.
is a quote from BBDO's creative director, Susan Creedle. We gave her
I think it's 'cause she's a naughty girl, but all right.
it's
Give me a different
almost funny.
reason.
We gave her white go-go boots because we couldn't figure out how to give her ankles. All the early drawings made Green look as though she had shapeless tree trunk legs, not in fitting with her seductress character. Finally, the creative team hit on the idea of giving Green go-go boots to wear instead. I know. Um, yeah, it's I I learned more today about the distinct personalities of each M&M than I ever knew in my life.
Yeah, and who the hell cares?
Well, I mean, now the orange ones are my favorites.
See, and I feel bad that they took her sexy boots away.
I do too. I mean, the
So
sneaks are really
I guess,
cute. She's just,
yeah,
more in style. I don't know. I liked those boots though.
sure. Yeah, I don't know. Everything's so stupid. I don't know. That's why I didn't sleep good last night. So everything just seems stupid to me. I'm sure if I had slept, this would all make perfect sense.
I don't think it would. I really don't.
No,
It's
no.
an interesting world out there.
I don't know. Is it? I guess. I'm a little bored with it, honestly. That's the worst part. It's not
I
even.
know.
I'm not even finding any of it interesting anymore.
Well, you start
I'm finding it all sort of
you
boring.
start seeing the same stuff again and again. People are ripping up their Nikes, they're burning their Carhartts, they're yelling about M&M and how sexy the candy is. And are there any other candies that you could go and have a drink with? There's the fruit striped zebra, but he's a mascot.
Yeah, I went. I mean, I made out in a bathroom with a Snickers bar one time, so I don't know if that's the same thing or
See,
if that's different.
do you remember when they started making the Hamburglar like really sexy in the McDonald's ads?
No, I think you dreamed that. I think you saw a sexy Hamburglar costume.
I was at Party City and then I hit my head.
Right.
See, because I was
That's when, and we didn't see you for 4 days.
after I saw the quote about like which M&M you'd want to go have a drink with, I started thinking like, are there other sexy candies you could go out and have a drink with, or non-sexy candies, just like candies with a great personality, for example?
I think, you know, after a couple drinks, you could definitely get something going with Mike and Ike. But other than that, I don't know. No, I don't think
I don't know. If you need me, I'm going out with a sexy Hamburglar.
Sure. All right, everybody. On that note, I don't know what our takeaway is from today's show.
No takeaways.
Everything's stupid.
Yeah, that's everything's stupid except for one thing I can think of, and that's the fantastic program Music Matters. That is not at all stupid. It's an awesome show, and it's coming up next on WAYO LP Rochester. Oh no, Ross, there's been a rule break. Leanna is going to be so cross. Oh, I wonder who it was. We're the only ones here. It must have been us.
No, Heather, remember
Why? Remember why?
how you glugged 4 shots of gin and started practicing kissing on your hand like a 3rd grader, all while holding deeply uncomfortable direct eye contact with me the whole time and making weird little little moaning noises?
Huh. That does explain why I have lipstick all over my hand.
Yes. Yes, it does explain that. Ew. Stop moaning.
Oh, I'm so punchy.
Ugh.